Hello, I'm Wilberforce. Today we will look at the very first type of minor word class, that's preposition. We will look at the link preposition has with nouns and then other words in a sentence, and then basically the types of preposition. Okay, so one may ask, what then is a preposition? Preposition shows how nouns or pronouns connect to other words in a sentence, or they show the relationship between nouns and pronouns and other words in a sentence. And so when we talk about prepositions, we are talking about relationship or connection between nouns or pronouns and other words in the sentence. Other words can be adjectives, adverbs, etc., etc. Okay, the connection or relationship may be in terms of time. So the connection or relationship may be in the form or in terms of time. So when you talk about time, preposition used can be at, in, during, in 2 weeks, etc. So the connection can also be in terms of place or position. And then when we are talking about place or position, the preposition used can be at, near, under, above, etc. The connection can also be in form of movement. Prepositions used can be into, through, towards, etc. Okay, so examples. Let us now look at examples as used in sentences. Example 1. My flight will be tomorrow, but I will arrive in 2 weeks. Great. So my flight will be tomorrow, but I will arrive in 2 weeks. So in 2 weeks over here is a preposition that is showing time. It is showing, or it is displaying the time of arrival. So it is the link between when I will be arriving and the rest of. So the noun over here we are talking about is me. That is the I over here. And it is showing the link between me and the time I'll be arriving. So the time I'll be arriving are the other words in the sentence we spoke about in the definition of a preposition. Example 2. The books are under the table. The books are under the table. So over here, under is an example of preposition showing place or position. Example 3. They quickly moved towards the teacher. They quickly moved towards the teacher. And towards over here And towards over here is an example of a preposition that is showing movement. So it is showing us the link between how they, the pronoun over here they, with the rest of the words in the sentence. Great. So these are examples in sentences. Then we should note that when choosing prepositions, we have to be careful because the type of preposition or the example of preposition you choose will determine what you mean in the sentence. And so you should take very cautious attention of it when you are choosing prepositions. For instance, when you say, I prefer to read in the library. I prefer to read in the library. Preposition there is in. And the example, I prefer to read on the library. Preposition there over in the second sentence is on. Now, in I prefer to read in the library, it means that you want to read inside the building, where you go through the door and then you sit in any of the chairs inside the library. But in the second sentence, I prefer to read on the library, it means that you would want to read on top of the library. So let's say the library has a roofing on top. So on top of the building is where you want to read, is where you prefer reading. These two sentences do not mean the same. And so instead of in, if you choose on, then you have changed the whole meaning of the sentence. And so we should be very careful when we are choosing prepositions. Great. So the next we'll be looking at is types of prepositions. We have basically three types of prepositions, and we have one way or the other spoken about them already. That is when we are looking at the relationship between nouns and pronouns and then the other words in the sentence. Okay, so the very first type of preposition we look at is the preposition of time, or preposition in relation to time. Okay, so preposition referring to time, or preposition when it talks about time, refers to when an action or an activity has taken place or is about to take place. Okay, so prepositions referring to time, they are used when we are talking about action or when an activity is about to take place or has already taken place. So examples of such prepositions, we have at, in, since, etc., etc. Okay, great. So examples in sentences. I go to work at 7 o'clock a.m. In this sentence, the preposition there is at, and it is underlined. So we are seeing over here that the person speaking is wanting to make a claim that he goes to work at 7 o'clock. And so at over here is talking about time 7 o'clock. So he doesn't go to work at any time except 7 o'clock. And so at is an example of preposition referring to time. Example 2, we pray in the evening. We pray in the evening. That means every evening we pray. And so over here, the preposition used is in, depicting time, saying that we don't pray at any time, but in the evening. In the evening. And then in example 3, we have they have been here since morning. So since over here is also an example of preposition depicting time. So when the question is being asked, what time did you get here? You can say, I have been here since yesterday. So the question was, what time did you get here? And then the answer is, since yesterday. And so since over here is also an example of a preposition which talks about time. Okay, so the next type of preposition we want to look at is preposition talking about place. So prepositions which talks about place indicate or show position. So I can say inside close, under, above, beneath. They are all examples of prepositions that talk about place. Okay, so we can see examples as inside, above, below, under, close, beneath, etc., etc. So this type of preposition, as we have said earlier on, that they show position or indicate position. Okay, so let's now look at examples in sentences and see how they are used in sentences. Okay, great. So examples in sentences. Example 1. The books are in the box, which means that the books we are talking about are inside the box, and so it is showing position. It is showing us where we can locate the books. Example 2. They are standing close to the door. It is showing the link between the people and where they are standing. So it is showing us the position where they are standing. You know, when we talk about where, we are talking about position. So they are standing close to the door. And the last example, we have the images are on the table, which means that if you are looking for the images, then they can be located on the table. So on is also an example of a preposition that shows place. Okay, so from the very first and second type of preposition we have looked at, we can see that some prepositions can be used to show time and place. For instance, when we're talking about preposition talking about time, we used in, and it was showing, or it was reflecting time, it was depicting time. And so it means that there are some prepositions that can be used to show time or even to show place. It will depend on how you are using the sentence or how the sentence is being structured. Okay, so the last type of preposition we'll be looking at is preposition that speaks about movement. This type of preposition shows or indicates direction. So any preposition that talks about direction is an example of preposition of movement. Good. So examples we can have into, through, towards, across, up, etc., etc. So examples in sentences. Example 1. The office is 5 meters across the road. Talking about direction. It is across the road. It is not beside the road, but it is across the road, on the other side of the road. Example 2. The cat went into the box. So if you are looking for where the cat is, then the cat is inside the box. So he went into the box. Third example. Kofi went up the hill. So Kofi didn't go around the hill. He didn't go about the hill, but he is up the hill. So in other words, he's on top of the hill. So this brings us to the end of preposition. Stay glued for more exciting videos. Thank you.